Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. We're going to do daily technical analysis on gold and silver. We're going to look at the dollar, the 10-year, and then go into ETFs and individual companies to see what we're seeing. It is going all over the place here. The dollar it's going to be a tough one to read. I'm going to show you what I'm looking at, and we'll have to figure out which way this thing's going to go. Obviously, we're not going to determine which way it's going to go, but the market will. And that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for a clear signal if this thing's breaking higher or if it's going lower. And I'll show you what I'm looking at here. Again, this is just financial opinions, not advice by any means. And we're just trying to get a clear direction on which way this thing's going to go. So here we go. I'll show you what I've got. So I've got the dollar on the upper one, and we've got gold. And you can obviously see when the dollar took off to the upside here, gold said, peace out, I'm going down. So they are inversely correlated most of the time. We've got a 0.2% up day, and in dollar terms, that's a pretty big up day, kind of middle ground to being somewhat a good size up day. Gold held pretty well, given a 0.2% up day in the dollar, 0.42% down. It's not too bad in gold. I threw some trend lines in here, kind of like this expanding wedge that broke to the downside, but then it's starting to creep back higher. We'll see if this touches and heads lower. But when looking at the dollar from a little bit bigger term perspective here, man, this thing looks complicated. We've got the medium term here. We've got this line going through. It's got a couple of contact points. It's not a ton, but it's got a couple. And it's right there at that cross point. We've got another one coming through here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's some contact points there which provide support. You could see the dollar came down and wanted to pop back up. On the short term, we've got downward pressure from this upward, we'll call it ascending wedge type pattern, which broke to the downside. So we have two opposing forces here. We've got support from this pattern here, and we've got basically a drop to the downside from this other ascending wedge. We'll see which way this thing goes. Looking at other charts, though, there's a bunch of strength in the CRB index and a whole bunch of other things that are signaling weakness on the dollar for the long term. Otherwise, those charts wouldn't be all aligning the way they are. So I have a bias of looking at this with a downward pressure. Now, someone could easily look at this chart and say we could go higher in the midterm. And that's very well possible. The timing of this is what's making it difficult to project, because I'm positioned for a commodity boom. And the dollar has got to go down. But I could see how this could go higher right here if this support line holds and this support line holds. But we've got the weakness from the short term coming lower. On a big long-term perspective, we can go a little bit lower till we hit another support line. So this is one I'm going to watch. There's a lot going on here. The 10-year, and this is what is funky because it's mixed signals. The 10-year is breaking out of this downtrend here, and it looks like to me that we're putting in this massive bottom, that we could be potentially coming up on the 10-year. We broke the downtrend here on the short term. We've got nice, good upward trend line here of support coming up. If the 10-year goes higher, usually that's paired with a lower dollar. It means that people are not afraid. They're not jumping into bonds, and they're not jumping into the dollar. I don't know if we have periods where we've had an increasing 10-year yield and an increasing dollar, that would be a funky scenario. Because your bonds would be going down, but it's a dollar-based, dollar-denominated asset. Funky. Now, gold itself, small little down day today. We didn't get just smoke to the downside. Again, I'm going to wait and see what this thing brings us tomorrow. We still have, just looking across for support. Silver, again, we broke the downtrend line to the upside and we're coming back and back testing. Is this going to move on higher? Let's find out tomorrow, because it looks like platinum's coming under some pressure too with its downtrend break, and we're right there, maybe even below it a little bit. We do have some support going across this way. So looking at these three, platinum and silver platinum looks okay, silver looks the best, and gold, I mean, we contracted down, so it doesn't look horrible. But we really need the dollar to weaken here if we want to move on higher. Looking at GDX, we're still in a downtrend. We haven't broken out of this downtrend yet. We do have a little wick at the bottom, which is good because it traded throughout the day and came back up higher. Momentum's kind of coming to the upside here. We're still in the downtrend. We got to break the downtrend. Now, SILJ broke its downtrend. Here's it clear as day, and we're just kind of pulling back a little bit. So not really a big deal there. This one looks good. Endeavor Silver broke its downtrend, looks good. 2 small little down days. Large buying pressure update here. So I'm looking at pressures here. We shot higher, and then we're just coming back a little bit, and that's not a big deal. Downtrend's broken, everything looks good. Same with First Majestic, downtrend's broken, big buying pressure, not much selling pressure, everything looks good. Yamana Gold, everything looks good, it's just moving sideways, so nothing to worry about there. Franco-Nevada, same picture, moving sideways, nothing to worry about. And these are moving sideways on down days of gold, not huge down days, but I mean, everything looks supported here. Everything looks good on all these different companies. Bullish, piercing here. I bet you this will go higher at some point if gold follows through. Sandstorm Gold doesn't look bad. Bullish engulfing, came up, came back a little bit. No big deal. Newmont, just 2 little small down days, potentially to move higher is my guess, if gold follows. The downtrend line doesn't look too bad here either. Looks like everything's intact. So that looks good. And Barrick Gold looks good too. I don't see anything, no problems here. Downtrend line's still broken. And then here's Barrick Gold on a long-term perspective. Let me throw in some trend lines here so you guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm just looking to see, I mean, we're right there at support. And then we've got, I mean, you could look at it this way here. I mean, either that there or this guy broke and we're just kind of coming down, because that's actually something like that. We'll see if this trend line holds right here. I would think it would, but let's find out. We'll see what the dollar does. This is kind of the big picture view of Barrick Gold. We're all coming back to these support lines. So that's what gold looks like. I mean, we got to get more data here. That's really what I'm waiting for. Got to see where the dollar's going. The 10-year looks like it's going higher, even though, I mean, we had a down day today, but it broke its downtrend. It's trending higher. And the dollar is, I mean, it broke down to the short term. We've got support on the medium term. Which way is this thing going to go? We got to find out. And guys, I'm in this for the long term. And the reason I am bullish is because of the expansionary phase of real estate. That's where inflation is derived from. When we get that inflation, and if we continue to monitor the real estate market, and if we're still in an expansionary phase, that inflation will come. It has in history. And whenever we have a commodity to stock ratio aligned with the expansionary phase of real estate, we've had commodity booms. Commodity booms have happened under a weakening dollar. We're probably just early to this game. And we haven't had the interest rates go on up to force and rotate money into other sectors yet. So I'm watching this and I'm waiting to see where this turning point is. That's really what I'm looking for. I'm not going in and out of these stocks. I'm not trading anything short term. Everything I have is long term. And the thesis is on the channel is built off of the expansion of, basically the thesis is built off of the real estate cycle. the real estate cycle and the way that it affects everything is you go up and down in the real estate cycle. You have a recovery phase on the bottom, an expansionary phase as it comes up, and we expand the homes in the system greater than the average. And then we have a hypersupply phase, and then we go into a recession. The recessions always result in a recession. It blows out stocks, it blows out commodities, everything falls, and we get this deflationary crash because the money supply is contracting during that recession in the real estate market. In an expansionary phase, demographics drives more homes being built. We go into an expansionary phase where we haven't built enough homes. And then we expand the money supply because new loans are going against new homes. And 60% of commercial bank loans are against those new homes. So we expand. And I don't think nothing has stopped this in history. Whenever we go into an expansionary phase, it's driven by demographics, which is followed or accompanied by inflation and higher interest rates. So if that were to play out, we would have a commodity boom because people are going to rotate their money out of stocks and bonds and into commodities. And I'm just watching all this, trying to see where are we going to take off. We are barely in an expansionary phase of real estate right now. We're like just barely coming into it. So I'm looking at all these indicators, and especially the dollar, because the dollar is where it's going to get hit. If we have inflation as high as it is, 5%, 6%, or it's probably greater than that, then we should be seeing the dollar go down. But we haven't seen that dollar go down yet. And I am kind of dumbfounded on how this thing is holding up there as well as it has. Now, maybe people think it's transitory. Obviously, I don't, but maybe that's what's gripping a lot of these people, and maybe that's what's giving the dollar demand and demand for bonds. Because I'm surprised that interest rate, well, I'm not that surprised because they are in there buying a bunch of bonds. On the short end, maybe they're buying the 10-year, I don't know. So I'm watching this, I'm looking at this from a very bullish paradigm based off of the thesis that I've created over the years. So if you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you guys like watching these updates, just subscribe and leave some comments below. Let me know what you guys think. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.